My name is Adam Thompson, and for roughly 12 years now I've been traveling the Pacific Ocean, studying the ancient ruins of the people that once lived across its islands. All of these people, from Taiwan to Southeast Asia to the Pacific Islands, they were all part of a common culture that we refer to as Austronesian. They voyaged over long distances in sailing canoes, and they spoke similar languages. On many islands I visited, I found large stone architecture, at temples where people once worshipped, at hilltop fortresses where chiefs took refuge, and at cities where the high people once lived. The earliest stone architecture in the Pacific Islands can be found on the island of Pohnpei in Micronesia, at a site called Nan Madol. It was built 800 years ago, but where did the people that built it get the idea? The legends passed down say that two brothers came from far to the west and built the place. But where did they come from? Where did the idea originate from? There must be a site out there that predates Nan Madol with a similar style. That is the site I am searching for. And to find it, I headed west of Micronesia to Southeast Asia. I had traveled to Indonesia to the island of Rinca to see Komodo dragons. Throughout Micronesia, I had heard stories of giant mythical lizards that could eat people. Here, they really did exist. I thought there could be a connection. It was in Micronesia that the oldest large stone architecture could be found in the Pacific. So when I heard there was an ancient mythical place on the island of Rinca that was made of large prismatic stone, the same type of stone as places built in Micronesia, I had to investigate. They called this place Batu Balak, which means the stone beam. So I'm now made it to Batu Balak. It's a legendary place, and what's amazing is all this prismatic basalt. Now it looks to be a natural quarry. Might be a few places where there has been some structures made, but most of it is natural. But what is interesting is the story about it, the legend behind it, of Rinca, from whom the island gets its name, who married another angel, and from the two, when they were wed, there came the child which became the king of a region further down. And it's really interesting that such a story, such significance would be given to a place with this prismatic basalt, which is seen as a holy stone, as we saw at sites in Micronesia. There's a lot of magic and spirituality associated with such places. And still today it's a very important place, Batu Balak, here on Rinca Island. We continued on to Indonesia's capital city, Jakarta. Here, 30 million people live together in one of the world's largest cities. Jakarta lies on the island of Java, where long ago kingdoms could be found spread across its mountains. 4 years ago, I had learned of a remarkable place, south of the city, called Gunung Padang. To get there, we would need to travel beyond the city's limits and into the country. As we made our way, tea plantations replaced high-rise buildings. Rice fields appeared in the valleys, and wilderness in between. Here is where we would find a most remarkable sight. So here we are at Gunung Padang. On top of this mountain here, Gunung actually means mountain, so this is Mount Padang. And there are 4 rooms here on top, and just below is another. And this was a holy site where priests would pray, and the high people at the time would come to meet each other. Now I'm interested in this because of similarities that this site shares with those in Micronesia. Namely, these stones right here. These basalt stones, which form naturally in this shape when volcanoes, a large volcanic flow, cools very slowly. Now, there's other sites in the Pacific Islands that are made of these same stones, but only 2 places in those islands. The site there is 800 years old, but this site is said to be much older. Some say it's 25,000 years old, others say it's 5,000. I believe it's at least 1,000. Hard to say because there needs to be more research here, but we do have the stories passed down about what some of these things are. It's like this chair here. This is the king's chair where he could sit and look out over the mountain. We can see similarities to the site of Nan Madol on the island of Ponape, and also Leilu on the island of Koshrai, and that both are made of these basalt stones. And in the styles that they are, you can also see the upright stones everywhere, where they're raised upright. And this is very similar to Eastern Polynesian sites, where people also pray at those sites. So it's perhaps this culture which spread across about 800 years ago that created these places. In East Polynesia, this would be called a marae. And East Polynesians come here from Tahiti, from Hawaii. They would recognize this as a sacred area where people would pray. They would say, this is part of our culture. Yet here we are in Indonesia, thousands of miles away. And people in Micronesia, on Ponape and Koshrai, they would see the stone, they would recognize it as an ancient place as well, where their kings once lived. And this, as we were told, is a place where kings lived and priests prayed, just like those sites out there in the Pacific Islands. So here at Gunung Padang, there's a few different things. There's on the place below where the low priest prayed, and a meeting area. Then as you move up, another prayer area for the high priest. And then as you come here, here is this observatory. It's in the middle of the site, and this is where the priest would observe the stars and look up to the sky. Very interesting that there's solar observatory here and a celestial observatory to look at the stars, because in many of the other sites, like Nan Madol, they also believe there's certain alignments, and the stars were used to align the sites. Of course, observations of the stars in the sky were very important for agriculture, knowing the seasons, and understanding the gods. So as we move up, we get to Batu Kanaragan. And this is a stone for testing those who wanted to become the king. It's a very heavy stone, and whoever could lift it up with the greatest of ease could then move up to become king. So it's a place for testing the royalty. Batu Kanaragan. So Batu means stone, Kanaragan means strong. So this is the strong man stone. And you can see it marked out in the areas here, the special area with these upright stones, and then the very heavy stone there. This also has similarities to other islands out in Vanuatu. There's a magical stone, very heavy as well, and whoever could lift that stone, they said, then any wish that they wanted could come true. They could do anything. And so we see a common link to those islands there in this special magical stone here.
Here was the site I had been looking for. Here I had found rooms made of upright stones where priests once prayed, just as I had found in French Polynesia in the form of the marae. Here I had found architecture made of prismatic basalt, just like the ruins in Micronesia at Nan Madol on the island of Ponape. Here there was a large mound that looked just like the tomb at Layla on the island of Koshrai, where the kings had been buried, which I had described in an earlier film. Here was a stone chair where the king could look out across the mountain, like the one I had seen in Fiji. Here was a hilltop fortress composed of many rooms like those found in the mountains of Taiwan. After all the years of excavation and exploration, after all the sites I had visited, I had finally found one that just possibly provided the origin of large stone architecture in the Pacific Islands. The people who once lived here at Gunung Padang and the mountains of Java had fled when others arrived and took over. They traveled far to the east to escape and find a new home. When they arrived on new islands, they shared their ideas with the people they met. They introduced the idea of large stone architecture to the Pacific, and it spread from one island to the next. That is my theory, anyways. And for me, that makes this site the site I've been searching.